I'm going to need some alcohol, I think, for this season.
Hello and welcome to part 2 of season 7. So we move on now to the ambassadors of death. Who wants to start us on Doctor Who, the ambassadors of death?
Oh, go on, Jason. You go first.
No, James. After you, I'm more than happy to start on the ambassadors of death.
Jason's not seen it. He's waiting to see if he can jog his memory.
Now, should I? Before we talk about it, I should go off and watch it.
So, having just said about the previous story that the 7 episodes doesn't feel that it lags too much, the opposite is true for ambassadors for me. And I know there are some people that love ambassadors, but I do struggle to watch this. A bit like you were just saying, P-Bal, about, you wouldn't rush out to watch the Silurians. I wouldn't rush out to watch Ambassadors of Death. I like the overall story, and I like, there's some sort of quite scary, genuinely creepy moments. But it was originally written as a second Doctor story, and it's gone through so many rewrites that what you end up with, I feel, is a bit of a hodgepodge of things. And actually, when I watch it, I just get a little bit lost and a little bit bored. And I really hate to say that, because overall I like the season, but I find the Ambassadors of Death this is where I would be waving my Marmite, is the weaker story for me at this point.
Jason is not agreeing with you.
James, are you watching the same story?
Yeah, I fell asleep for it twice. Pretty sure.
No.
Well, every 25 minutes at least you get a doing, so you shouldn't be asleep.
Well, the Ambassadors of Death is a glorious Doctor Who story.
I'd agree. I think I put it as the spoilers. I think it's the best of the season 7. Really, I think it stands out, and it's interesting because there are parts where it's quite. It's a weekly serial, so I can forgive it. The thing of Liz escaping to be back 10 minutes later, and that's obviously a case of how long we got to fill, and you're going to get that. I think you're sort of going to get that. But I love Dudley. I think, having been not allowed to do the last story, cranks up the music to there's some beautiful motifs within this, and all the space that is. I love it. I love the music. I think Michael Ferguson, I think, is one of Doctor Who's best directors. Absolutely, no question. He is one of the best directors. I don't think he turned in a dud. He's got a beautiful sense of how to shoot these things, how to get a pace through, how to make it feel fresh. A huge fan of the way he does it. The shot that is the best shot in this episode. It is the ambassador, and he knows it's the same way he shoots the Ice Warriors when they're going across the fields and Seeds of Death. Is that camera down, upward, and you get that real impression that the ambassadors, or the astronauts, whatever you want to call it, are huge and imposing, and the light refracting off them. It's beautiful. I love his direction. I'm enthused. I'm being positive about something. Where's the contrary?
No contrary here. I am absolutely 100% with you. I think this is a proper Earthbound Doctor Who story that sits so well in this season. You're absolutely right. Michael Ferguson nails this. Havoc get their first real showcases, and boy do they perform. And okay, there's some big set pieces there, and it's clear that they've hired a helicopter in and they're letting the stuntmen just do what they want to do and have some fun. But it adds so much to the story. This realistically could be an Avengers story, but it isn't, and I'm glad it isn't, because it's Doctor Who and the Ambassadors of Death, and we get it and we get to enjoy it. There's some cracking bits in this. The space sequences are brilliantly shot. The film sequences where they're bringing the two spaceships together, you know, some of the best that we'd seen probably in the series up to date. I also like the way that Michael Ferguson works the camera when he's on the Recovery 7 right at the very start. So straight away, you've got another one of these massive epic sets, the space control there. And you've got Recovery 7 and it's on a big, massive screen. And, you know, they're turning the recovery capsule and the camera's turning with it. And you really get the sense of that sort of, they are in space. And again, you hadn't really ever had that in Doctor Who before. And when you think this was not long after the sort of moon landings and you know, seeing spaceships flying around in space and all those sort of things was commonplace. But what Michael captures, I think he does capture the essence of the whole space travel. And bearing in mind we're on Earthbound now, so kind of nice that we've got these little nods going on with, you know, up and down and you know, back and forth to the sort of alien ships and things. But it's full of drama. It's got some great cliffhangers. I mean, cut it open. I mean, what a cliffhanger that is. You know, cut it open. It's like, get out of my pub. It's absolute blaster. And Ronnie Allen, I think, he has his critics, but Ronnie Allen, Ralph Cornish really carries the story through for me. And, you know, coming back so soon after The Dominators, he must have been well liked by the production team. But no, I'm not going to say very much bad about The Ambassadors of Death. Yes, okay, you could say it's probably just a little bit long, but I always say that about longer stories anyway, apart from the Daleks. But I just think this is a real barnstormer of a story.
It's interesting because Ronald Allen is one of those, it's a performance where you can either say he's so far under, he's not doing it, or he's totally very, very much on brand with it. I mean, it's slightly difficult not to hear Duncan Preston, isn't it, when you hear him doing the voice? But he's absolutely solid, it's stoic, isn't he? John Abineri does a great run. I think the one criticism and performance that I would give is that Peter Halliday doing the voice of the Ambassador is literally the same voice he sold them the week before for the Silurians, and it's a little bit like, was Roy Skelton busy that week or something? It's like, could you not have called round, or when he did it, go, did that last week? That's my only criticism of performance, I think. I mean, it's like Jay said about this Avenger. I suppose it's almost that kind of gritty sort of Sweeney-esque thing where he's sort of, it's very violent in parts, and it's not apologetic in how I mean, some of the stage acting is a bit ropey, but you go with it because it's not a film series and they just got to do it in the studio and don't hit the extras. But burying the bodies in the quarry, there's a lot of people just get shot and used, and it's that kind of, I don't want to say espionage, but there is that conspiracy sort of drama to it, and there's a lot of I like that, and it's sort of new territory, I think, Doctor Who. That's not something it tackled before. And again, much like the Silurians, I suppose, before, the aliens, the ambassadors, aren't the bad guys in any of this. Which, I mean, slightly feel like we've hoodwinked you here, James, and that you've gone first and said you thought it was crap. We're not telling you you're wrong. This is an open debate on this. I just don't feel we're ganging up on you.
I do like. I like the title sequences which show the clip of the previous one, and then sort of they have a break in the middle of the title sequence, don't they? So they can do a recap, and then they start again. The sound effects. There's a lot for Liz here. You know, like you say, she does get captured quite a lot. Roy Scammell throwing himself off the weir in her place. It's quite. You're just like, oh, it's really good. Oh yeah, that's Blake. But I still don't get me wrong. We're not in a sort of like, you know, below average territory. But for me, compared to the other three stories, it's the one I least like. and it is not the one that I would go, do you know what, I feel like I'm going to watch Doctor Who episode tonight and I'm going to watch this. There is just something about it that, for me, I just don't, it just doesn't resonate with me. And all of the stories try to do something slightly different. I like the fact, again, that it's not an alien menace that's trying to take over the world. It's actually, they're the ones that have been attacked. So again, you get this side of the Doctor who's trying to save them rather than save this, save the planet, because it's human that's done this. So there are elements of it I do like, but just overall, the 7 episodes to me, it's just a little bit, I don't know.
I think it's interesting that the biggest fault I'd pull on it is that, as it is 7 episodes, the denouement is dealt with within about 2. It feels very quickly sort of, and they're back in the station and we're done. And I'll leave you with it. They've got to go back up, though. They're not going to blow the planet out now, and I'm sure we'll all be friends. Ta-ta. And then it's done, isn't it? The sort of resolution, I think, is a little bit like, I don't know. It feels like you have quite a build-up to it.
I think the ending is satisfactory. I think for me it meanders to get there, and then it's unsatisfactory when it gets to the end. That's what I think.
But everything's resolved, though, isn't it? And it all I'd say it all ties up as to how it works within the conspiracies of who's played who along with what, and the bad guys are the people who are trying to get, and because John Abernethy, the general.
General
Carrington.
General Carrington, yeah.
He's not bad. He's a bit affected by his space experience. The bad guy is Regan, isn't it? Regan, because he's out for using the situation for his own gain as a mercenary, and he can see an opportunity to kill and to. So there's lots. I mean, again, it is a lot of comment on human behaviour, human condition. I like the lights and shades of it. And obviously there's sort of inference that some people at the unit might not be all that nice. They help to kill poor old Cyril Shaps, don't they? They drop him a little dish, don't they? So lots of great, And if I'm going to be totally superficial, Liz Shaw's hat is probably one of the most incredible things seen in the show.
I couldn't agree more.
It's impressive.
I'd like to hope that it was fitted to the wig, but it's incredible. It is and it doesn't fall in the weir.
It's not without some faults, though, I think, and just to balance out my my earlier praising of the story, not without some issues. So there's some real ropey CSO when you come into the sort of latter stages of the story, and it's true. David Whittaker's scripts were troublesome throughout. I mean, he was having difficulty getting the idea of the story. Obviously, they asked him to sort of step away, and the story was finished off.
He still gets the credit for it, though, doesn't he?
He does indeed still get the credit for it, and I think that's a nice touch, because it was his last Doctor Who contribution, and televised contribution. And for me, I think that was the right way of doing it. And I think that's the sort of gentleman that Barry Letts, and Terence Dix, the gentleman that they both are, wouldn't let him sort of fail, if you like. So they helped him a little.
Is it not, though, that the script editors who did rewrite it wouldn't be allowed to have a credit?
Possibly.
Yeah. I'll go with the gentleman story, because
go with the gentleman thing. It sounds nicer.
I know I'm going with the gentleman thing. I wouldn't want to not do that. But for me, the biggest bugbear in this actually isn't. I mean, I do love the Martians, by the way. I love the whole sort of spacesuits thing. I love all that. The thing that bugs me the most, actually, in this story is how the hell did he get the TARDIS console out of the TARDIS and set it up in that little laboratory room to do experiments on it? At first, when I first watched this story, I genuinely thought that was another console room within the TARDIS. What is going on with this in this season? This is the one thing that I get bugged about throughout this. I know it's a plot point in the next story, but why? Why take it out of the TARDIS to work on it when you can literally walk in the TARDIS and work on it in there?
because then they'd have to show you the TARDIS set, and it'd be and they'd have to keep it in stock, and they don't need to keep it in stock. You don't.
The TARDIS was actually damaged, so they had to. The TARDIS set was damaged, so they had to take the prop out, and even you will see some differences between stories because it was so badly damaged. They'd just put new sort of knobs and switches onto it because it was so battered. But the actual TARDIS itself was badly damaged, so they couldn't really use it.
Well, it doesn't make any sense to me. That's the bit that doesn't make any sense.
I mean, I first saw Inferno when I was about 12, and I loved that. So when I used to play Doctor Who Lego, I'd take the console out and have little adventures where it hadn't got to be in the console room. I like that. Probably doesn't make a lot of sense. You could just, because the box itself would probably be easier to transport around the country, but you know, I mean the bits that probably don't quite make sense and slightly you just got to just go with it are the making the tape dematerialize and then that wafts of cop out quite strongly, but I can forgive that. And I don't forgive a lot of things, but I forgive that. The other cliffhanger that I think we didn't mention, I love the one where the ambassador's reaching over and you just see he's about to sort of tap the doctor's back. I like that one. Yes. That's my recreation of it.
You'll have to do it again. We didn't see it.
I've got the same killer touch, you see. So you watch it.
Yeah, keep the comments nice, guys. He's got a killer touch.
Yeah, you'll need a havoc stunt throw. No, I do like a lot about it. It's TV's Toby Haydock's favourite story, so we should all be kind about it as well. That's a fact for you. You don't look plussed by that. I'm plussed by that. Anything else that we need to say about that? I like the design actually, even under the. I'm not so sure about the bubble wrap thing that you see going. Not sure about that, but the actual the blue face that you see when he lifts the helmet, and I think the Liz reaction to that needs to be a GIF because it's kind of like a. But yeah, it's great, and there is something iconic about this, the spacesuit and the sort of what is lurking underneath it, and there's the. Not the first book cover, I'm not sure I like that, but the blue spine reprint with Alistair Pearson's art on it again, it's such an iconic look, the hands out sort of. I mean, is that an echo later on for the Silence in the Library?
Jon's comfortable by this point in the role as well. He's bossing it a little bit in the early stages of this story, and you know, you see that sort of pomposity coming out with him there, where he meets Ralph Cornish for the first time, and he's all blah blah blah, and then he wants to get his own way, and he's all very nice, oh boy, and all of that sort of thing. I love that, and I think that's really, I think Jon's found by this point in season 7, Jon's really found the part now. He's really owning the Doctor, and I think he's coming out with a brilliant performance. And you know, Jon's always been one of my favorite Doctors, so I'm always going to say some good things, but yeah, I like the direction he's taken it in by this point, and I think he's owning it very well.
I love how he.
I'm going to go for it. No.
I love how he plays up to, you know, figures of authority, and you see this in other stories where he's got no time for them whatsoever, and you know, unless he's going to get his own way.
Is this the first story where we get Jon doing a voice? Because he does the. Is that my car's broke down? He does that, doesn't he? I'm just worried that's the first instance of because obviously there's the scene in Inferno that's sort of cut or not cut depending on what version you're watching. Where he does the haw voice, but it's the first one where, because you know, it does become a sort of thing intermittently when they let him, because he does the voice, doesn't he, to try and persuade them he's some poor old guy whose car's broken down. Even if, like the Batmobile, it's got an anti-theft device handily labelled for the viewers at home, so you can just stick anyone to the rear bumper or something.
It's the fast return switch all over again.
But at least they printed it this time. It wasn't penned on by a production assistant on the day with a biro. What did you say it was? Anti-theft. Put it on. No, so it's nice. There's a bit of business. I think it's nice to have a little subtle comedy within his performance. But I do think he hits it straight away. I don't think you have that thing that other doctors may or may not have, where you wait a while for them to hit their stride. I think he does hit it from spearhead on, but like he's in full flow now.
Oh, he's
So
owning it.
Yeah. He's bossing it, as they might say if they were on EastEnders in 1996.
I've just got one more thing I want to say about the Ambassadors of Death as well. A shout out to our friends over at the restoration team, because those guys have worked utter miracles to give us a full color version of this story. You know, knowing the kind of quality for the source material, we really have been spoilt to be able to watch this the way that we watch this now. And it's a miracle that we watch half the Doctor Who, because, you know, the Doctor Who I grew up with were Australian repeats that were bootlegged and about 7th generation. And even then you could see how bad Ambassadors was. But I've got to say, you know, this season particularly has needed some love, and this story in particular is eminently more enjoyable because of the work that those guys have put into making it as good as it now looks.
Agreed. It is fairly ironic that the first one is on film and can look better than any other classic Doctor Who, and then the 3 subsequent stories are all from such varied source materials that you really have to work hard to get it looking good. Yes, I
was going to say one little factoid from me. The unit soldiers wear a uniform in this story that is never seen again.
Did he go to the wash and not get returned?
They must have just been in the tumble dryer from the last story. So they're given a brand new unit uniform that only is for this story.
Jason saw a bag marked old soldiers' uniforms and it was gone.
I'm saying nothing.
Yeah. Yes, anyway. Until about 5 minutes of this recording starting, I was wearing my Margot Hayhoe themed t-shirt from it. Clayton's done a very clever t-shirt because there's the bit where the van does that very sort of, again, Batman thing of swapping around. But it turns out that Margot Hayhoe's name was sort of below tit level, so you wouldn't have seen it and it would have made no sense to anyone. So anyway, shout out to Margot who worked on this one and is lovely. Leaving me hanging again. Okay, are we going to go for scores on this one?
Let's do it.
Who dares to go? Shall we make James go first because he doesn't like it?
Yeah, I think no. I'm happy. No, yeah, go on. James can go first.
Yeah, don't try and pretend you're kind, Clifford.
Make James go first then.
Right. Well, there we go. Yeah, I scored it a 6.
Oh, that was quick.
That was good. That was it. Yeah,
that's a quick 6. Is that a quick 6 there? Is it?
It's a big 6.
Okay.
I mean, you can have another think if you need to. I mean, Clifford usually, if he doesn't like it, he just does the method of 1 point per episode. So, not even like I mean, one of those episodes hasn't got a point.
Well, there were several that I felt didn't have a point, but you've got 6. Oh, there's going to be comments.
Oh, well, do you know what? It's a good job that we all like different things in Doctor Who, because
hashtag like troll James, troll James.
Yeah. Hashtag justice for ambassadors.
For us ambassadors.
Okay, I'll take my score.
Ambassadors really were not spoiling us. Go on.
Yeah, okay, I'll take my turn at the score then. So I've been quite enthusiastic about this story for really a number of good reasons. And as I said, Michael Ferguson delivers a real blinder here. The regulars are on top form. There's some fabulous havoc material in this. We've got helicopters. We've got big lorries being kidnapped with Recovery 7 on the back of them. It's epic. Could have been an Avengers episode. Glad it wasn't. And I'm going to give this story, The Ambassadors of Death, a very, very respectable 8.5.
Ooh.
Very exciting, very, very tense, isn't it? Tense scoring. Okay. I also really like it. We've listened to the audio. We've listened to audio more than once. I mean, that's going it. So we've listened to the audio of this as opposed to just watching the DVD. That's hardcore. Really like it. I mean, it's not perfect. I'm not going to say it's perfect. So I can't do a Shirley, I'm afraid. But I'm going to be slightly more generous than Jason Clifford, who's just left the scoring.
Yes.
Talk about interest levels. He's actually gone.
No, I haven't left the scoring. I'm here.
I just saw you go.
Yes, but I had to go and get something.
I thought you got a little bucket under there for when you needed the loo. Anyway, as I was saying, you all right? So you stopping for this now?
Yeah, no, I'm stopping.
Okay.
I'm all in for this.
I don't know. We got a date or something, or an old soldier's uniform to rifle through. I'm giving the Ambassadors of Death 9.
Yay!
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 Screw you, James. Which gives the Ambassadors of Death 23.5.
Wow. Okay.
Very tight. Can't say that about Jason, but this is very tight.
Honestly,
Okay.
The reputation you're going to give me, honestly, in these things is ridiculous. You've done it again. You've let me.
Anyway, we now move on to the season finale, and it is Doctor Who and Inferno. Is it a return to the nightclub in the War Machines?
Oh, no. I'm glad it wasn't.
Why?
Because this is a better Inferno. This is the Inferno. This is proper Inferno.
Hang on. So it's like you're saying a drill that could bring the end of the world is better than a nightclub frequented by handsome sailors. Are you really Jason Clifford?
We might need to cut this bit out because, no, I can't agree. I have to agree with you now because now you've said it that way. I've got to agree with you.
Okay, Jason, why do you love Doctor Who and the Inferno?
Well, this is a story that I have enjoyed since the very first time I watched it. It's the first time that Doctor Who explores a parallel universe. And if ever there was a season that needed a parallel universe story, it's one where you've got lots of 7-part stories. But as James thought the Ambassadors of Death had a lot of unnecessary episodes, as he just said, Inferno is absolutely spot on. It is pinpoint from the first time Jon's pulling into the complex to the very last scene where he's all embarrassed because his TARDIS has dumped him in the scrap heap at the back of the place. It absolutely is brilliant from start to finish. What is there not to like about this story? Douglas Camfield's direction, particularly on the outside stuff, because he obviously had his mild heart attack and didn't finish the studio stuff. But Dougie Camfield's direction is on point right from the get-go. The whole split universe thing that's slightly out of sync, and the whole doubling up of the characters, and James's cosplay this time out absolutely reflects, I think, his feeling for this story as well, I would say.
Oh, so that's cosplay.
Just had a bit of an eye infection.
It could have been an eye infection or a big fan of Gabrielle. No, nobody wanted to mention it.
I was going to sing Dreams in a minute. You've ruined that.
And I just want to mention Don Houghton's script as well, which I think he absolutely delivers. So there isn't an awful lot wrong with this story. And this is one of my favorite seasons. I've said it a number of times. The stories have just got better and better as we've gone through. And I think Inferno is, for me, the pick of the bunch in this season.
Yeah, I think the 7-episode format works really well here because you have, as well as the sort of overlapping universes. So you've got one running slightly ahead of the other one. You've got lots of other dynamics that are going on in both universes. So you've got the love story, which is going on between Greg and Petra, which you see develop, but you see develop sort of in two very different ways, where in the other universe, where she's very sort of not militaristic, but she's very sort of like, you must respect my authority. I am the sort of second in command, and she really is quite forceful with him, and eventually sort of breaks down. In the proper universe, they're much more sort of like that. They get through that barrier really quickly, and they start to join forces and sort of realize there's something strange going on. I really love the fact that you see the same story unfolding, but with slightly different dynamics. And I know we talked about this a bit already, but the fact that they get to play their doppelgangers, I just think that the Brigade Leader is just this horrible version of the Brigadier who's just literally, I'm going to shoot you. If you don't do what I say, I am going to shoot you. And Liz is very like that to begin with, but then starts to realize what's going on. The Doctor still trying to save them, even though they are hideous people, and he's still trying to save them. He's still trying to work out what's going on, and make sure that they're okay. And there's that scene at the end where he gets the power through to the TARDIS. Petra's the real sort of heroine in this, because she goes back into the power complex to finish the work, even though she knows she's going to die, to allow the Doctor to come back and save the other universe. He's leaving Liz, even though it is the other version of Liz, pretty much to be burnt by a pile of lava that's just about to knock into the shed. I think that there's some really brilliant moments in this that I'm with you, Jason. This is to me is one of my favorite stories. It's one that I would say, I'm gonna, what do I fancy watching? This one would be one of those ones that I would say I'd quite happily watch this.
I'd say there's probably a point around episode 3 where it starts to decide it's going to be a bit slow, and it has a grind for about 2-3 episodes where it goes terribly slow. Not bad, just a little bit slow. I think it has pacing issues. I'm not entirely convinced all the way through. It's bam, 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 bam. I think it does have a bit of porridgey sag within it. I'm contrary. What can I say?
Absolutely, contrary is not a bad thing. It's kind of, I can understand it to a degree, because you've got the same story being sort of technically retold, and what's slightly out of sync. It has subtle differences, so potentially I can see where that is coming from. I think.
No, not even through the split universe thing. I just think it hits a bit of a slow, and it doesn't feel like it's pushing forward as much as it could be propelling. My big regret with this story, and it's no disrespect to Sheila Dunn, who's lovely, does a lovely performance, is that Kate O'Mara was choice as she was doing a film, and I can only imagine that extra level that she would have brought to that, because in the nicest possible way, I think Petra comes across as a little bit wet in parts, and she's a bit kind of whereas Kate wouldn't have done it. She wouldn't have done wet. It just wouldn't. I mean, and I think there'd have been a bit more sass to the flirtation with Grey. I think that would have been it. And again, no, I think she did a great job and a lovely performance. But there is a part of me that's a little bit sad that I think Kate would have just taken it up a level. Lots of great. Olaf Pooley is incredible. I love Starman playing about his liver. Chris Benjamin, lovely to see him in his first Doctor Who. Derek Newark, back for the first time since the first story. There's lots of lovely performances in it. I think John Levine gets a lot more to do in this, and you do get a difference there. You get the lovely Benton, you get the nasty Benton. I think it's actually, he's sort of undervalued in how he performs, but he does.
Yeah.
I mean, you get werewolf Primward Benton as well, so I suppose you get three. But a great turn from him. I think that's obviously because him and Dougie had a relationship, and I think he was comfortable, and I think the performance shows that he's comfortable.
There's a character options box set that we haven't had there, with the three Bentons.
Three Bentons.
Give it time. As we speak, someone will be grafting a bit of werewolf figure from something from Primeval or something that they've already got the mold for. And also, I think because we talked about music, the stock music for this is very stark, and I like it's a sort of escape, isn't it? It's a soundscape rather than actually the dental. That's nice.
Titles, haven't you, with the inferno? With the volcanic explosions as well.
And the last time actually that they venture out with titles that break out of the norm. So from Terror of the Ortons onwards, unless anyone's prepared to contradict me on this, I don't think they break out of the norm. So it's just normal opening and closing credits from this story on.
Apart from for the death of Adric later on.
Oh, still grieving.
Still, yeah.
But no, I think the Inferno set that whole. This is why I got excited about Inferno at the start of this. Before P-Bal reminded me of the Inferno nightclub, but it sets the tone of the story. You come out of the lovely, beautiful title sequence, and you've got the sort of volcanic and inferno boosting up. Reminds me very much of the Ice Warriors opening, except it hasn't got that awful singing. And I think again, it just sets the tone for this story. They're obviously still experimenting a little bit as they're coming through this. And they're trying new things, and they're trying different things. And, they're having to work with that constraint of being set on the planet Earth. And I think they're just being clever. And I think the cleverness shows through in this. And I believe then this would be the first of Barry Letts's commissions, I'm assuming. But it just has everything for me that a Doctor Who story has. It does, however, feel just a little bit like there's no hope. So by the time they've penetrated the Earth crust in both worlds, you sort of feel like it's definitely on a decline, because how are they going to stop this from happening? It's obvious the world's going to blow up at some point. Obviously it does happen in the alternate universe, and therefore doesn't, and we get that sort of resolve, and that's a great resolution to the end of the story. But it just feels very dark, and it gets darker, and it gets slightly darker and darker and darker, as part of that, I think, some very good storytelling for this story.
And I like that darkness. And again, it's not an alien from outer space that's trying to invade Earth and kill everyone. This is, this primeval slime that's been sort of creeping up the drilling shaft, and that turns everybody into these werewolves effectively. But I like that dark, grim aspect of it. That the fact that he leaves them all there to die, and then he can come back and he can save everybody in his own universe. I think that's quite. There are stories where they would never have let that happen. There's time of Doctor Who where they did not have let that happen. There would have been some miracle when he managed to save the day. But this is very upfront and sort of like, no, they've died in a pool of lava. Move on. We're back in our own universe, and we're going to save it. I love the effects as well. The heat haze. When there's sort of, you do feel that it is claustrophobic and it is hot, and it's, it's. I would love to see this done as a film. And actually, all of the stories in this season, the 7-episode ones, would make good films because they've got a really solid plot around them. The way that they are sort of constructed, it's not all like you're in one place. They've all got sections of the story which would make for a good cinematic experience. But I think with Inferno, they managed to give you that in the serial. You're going to leave me hanging now.
Did you know the funny thing that I was thinking about Inferno actually is the first time I saw the story as to her was on the Pertwee years. So I saw episode 7 before I saw the story. And interestingly, you can actually watch episode 7 without watching the rest of the story because it's its own little enclave, isn't it? Because he basically explains where he's been and they explain what's happening there. So actually, you can in some ways watch it because it makes sense to do it, but it is that sort of coda, isn't it? Almost, because I suppose the story is that he's on the planet, he goes to, the alternative is how that plays out and they all die at Bleak. But then the coda to that is that he comes back and he's got the experience of that world and he saves this one, I suppose. But yeah, my first knowledge of it was seeing the last part on the Pertwee, which is by the by.
And another one where my OCD is playing up because the TARDIS isn't where it's supposed to be, and the console is in a hangar at the complex for no real good reason other than he wants to experiment further on it. And this time he's taken it out on location to experiment on it. I really am not a terrific fan of the console being out of the TARDIS. It just doesn't work for me. I said it in Ambassadors and I'll say it here. But that's just a really, really, really minor niggle for this story.
Last appearance of the original before they took an axe to it and finished it off.
Oh,
yeah,
that breaks my heart. Because that console is one of the best designs.
I suspect by that point, 7 years of it being yanked in and out of studios here and there probably wasn't a respected thing at the time. He was like, "Oh, it's broken this off and can't get the rotor going," and
My my little factoid is
here we go.
Poster behind me. So this is Jack Kine, who was the visual effects designer for this story, and he stole this because he worked on 1984, the Orson Welles film, where one of the designers was the poster for that. So he sort of nicked it and put it into this serial. Not Jason with the Marmite.
That's a nice touch, James. I like that. It's a nice touch.
I'm a little upset that you didn't give him Liz's brown sex shop wig. Why has that not been photoshopped on? He could have been. Section leader Clifford.
Yeah, I could do that. I could rock a wig. That's easy.
Brown wig and thigh-length boots. It's a Saturday night in the Bay, isn't it?
It could almost be Saturday night at Utopia.
Hopefully not. Yeah, I think it's a clear. I don't know whether I can't remember what I scored Mind of Evil. In my head, I suspect that I prefer Mind of Evil more, but I might have scored Inferno better. Such are the vagaries of not doing them concurrently, I suppose.
Yes, it is, isn't it?
I think within the context of the season, it's yeah, I do like it as and it's interesting though because a lot of people get upset that Liz doesn't get an outro. She gets the last shot of the season though, so I think that's quite sweet that she doesn't get a goodbye scene, but she does get she gets to laugh. It's got to be worth something, hasn't it? And quite generous as well, I suppose, that the last shot isn't the Doctor, because you would, I suppose, naturally end on your star, wouldn't you?
Yes, you would normally. And the last time we see him in that all black costume that he's sported throughout the season, it's actually pretty consistent. Whereas from season 8 onwards, it seems to change pretty much in every story, and it sort of it marks the ever-changing costume of Jon Pertwee, then, doesn't it?
But I especially think when I came, because I did do them all concurrently in quite an intense period. I do think by the end of this, you can see that this format, whilst individually, and I think if you came back and you watched Ambassadors or you watched Inferno, if you watched them as a story on their own, it's completely different, I think, than watching them as a run.
Agree.
And I think a lot of these, when we've done the talks, I think I've had a different take on them because I've watched them as part of a run rather than just, I like that story, I'll watch that story, or I want to watch so in it. I do think by this point with the setup, you can see that it does need a shake. It does need sort of, I mean, almost Unit sort of becomes a little bit more comic strip as a setup, I think. They're going for the grit. They're going for a bit more. It's not the most realistic thing, but I think they're going for the grit and the realism. I think next year they shift a bit more into a Saturday adventure, don't they? It's a comic. It's bright. It's and I love Barry's sense of coming into saying, no, I need more first nights. I need more. This is how I get the audience in, because in the best way in the world, and if you sit and watch Inferno now and love it, if it was 1917, you came in on episode 4, is it something you'd be like, oh, what happened 3 weeks previous? Should I stick with this for the next 4 weeks? I don't know. I wasn't alive in 1917, but I think there's a sort of notion that is Doctor Who better as a sort of pacey kind of action. There's room for all different sorts. I'm not saying you can't do a conspiracy, you can't do a history, but is this sort of 7-part thing, which in my head is always a bit time slid. There's that 7 or 8 part kind of all the budget, make the money last.
It's interesting.
Sustainable.
It's interesting though, because it's interesting what you say actually, because you're quite right. I think if you were watching it episodic and you might not be where you were, this has been a season that has absolutely shifted in the thinking for fans. It is my gut feel, and I waved the Marmite round at the beginning and I wave it around again, because for some this is a Marmite season, because you either, I think this is a season you either really like or you really don't like. And I remember in younger years that season 7 was always seen on as something that was really quite a serious season and not the most, when you compare it to the classics that followed in from Terror of the Autons onwards, and the classics that had been in the black and white, and this is a season that really wasn't liked, I think then became liked, and I think has way more fans now than it did maybe 10, maybe 15 years ago. And that's the shift in perceptions of Doctor Who fandom for me, is that, and it's interesting when we do these rewatches, that I've gone back to seasons that I potentially didn't like originally, and I kind of like them now when I watch them in the way that I'm watching them. So I think everyone's always going to have different views and different takes, and but this season is one that I think has shifted in perception from being a mediocre, not very good, quite serious season to actually, I think, having a status that's a lot higher today.
I think my analogy of the week for you is, if you were a Kylie Minogue fan, season 7 would be Impossible Princess and season 8 would be Light Years. There's nothing wrong with either, and they're both fine in their own spheres. But that's what, for the 4 of you out there that might also be Kylie Minogue fans, that's where we're going. It's Impossible Princess into Light Years. Both great. Jason doesn't remember anything other than I should be so lucky when he was out down the bay clubbing it.
Stop it. Right.
Are we cruising towards a score on this then?
I think we've probably got a score on this.
No more facts?
No.
He's going to have to stock up on his facts for the next one.
Yeah. Stato's letting us down here.
Jason's going to have to watch the next one. It's
It's all going on, isn't it?
Okay. So Doctor in the Inferno, who wants to go first?
James, as you are cosplaying the Brigade Leader himself, I'm going to let you take the lead on this one.
Fine, that's fine. For me, this was the VHS that I wore out It was, and then it was really
Enough
difficult
of that, please. Enough of that.
to get hold of. And then when I did get hold of it, I watched it over and over and over again, and I really, I kind of came into Doctor Who through not necessarily watching it what was on TV at the time, but recordings that my grandfather had made off the TV from repeats. And when I got hold of some of the VHSs, they were just brilliant. You could just sit and watch them over and over again. And this was one of those. And for me, it is one of my favourite go-tos. So I gave it a 10.
You haven't got a paddle out for that. You need a.
I don't have a prop for my 10. I just
Well, there's a little party popper or something. Okay, can I say on the note about the thing that always puzzles me slightly on the VHS, and it's the availability of photos, because there aren't that many great colour shots. All the photos in the back of Inferno are in black and white.
Yeah.
It gives a slight inference that it's not in colour, and yet it's a colour story. Anyway, that's my worry of the moment. Having given you all a great Kylie analogy, you can climb all of it today. So Jason, what are your scores for Inferno?
Okay, so rather like a 7-episode story, I think my summary on this could be overly long. So I'll keep it fairly brisk on this one, because I think it's obvious as I've come through the discussion on this where I feel this story sits. This absolutely does sit in my top 5 stories.
There's been 7 of them so far.
Well, exactly, and I was just about to say, James,
3 tonight.
Thank you for pointing that out to me, because I came into this with a top 5, and actually my top 5 is sort of becoming my sort of very loose top 10, but it's a top 10 really more than a top 5. But this is a story that has history with me. I've watched this many times, and got some very fond memories of this story. And to be honest, I think Don Houghton's script delivers. I think the parallel universe piece works really well. It's a climax to what I think is a terrific season all the way through. The regulars again on form. We've got some really good guests, but it's the story, the script, and the whole parallel universe for me. And I'm afraid to say that I do have a paddle, and it's going to be a 10, because this is absolutely a terrific Doctor Who story.
I was slightly worried that you framed that badly and you were giving it a 1 because you wanted people to say horrible things.
So did I. I tried to look sideways around it because I didn't know where it was on the screen. So you 2 10s for the Inferno. Absolutely.
So if I give it 1 point, it finishes in last place, right?
You wouldn't do that though.
1 point? Come on.
I don't know if you're being serious or not.
I know. That's the joy of my Gemini personality. Yeah, Inferno. I like Inferno. I do think it has going back through in the run. It's not my favorite. I think, as we're about to find out, it's actually it's my 3rd favorite of the season, it would seem. So I'm actually giving Inferno 7 points.
That's great.
Jason's trying to do the maths. He's trying to do the maths now. He's thinking, I think 1
That's a good score, I think. We've been about 7 hours, so I'm not entirely. We're as long as a 7-episode story on this filming. So I
was hoping Trevor Ray would have rewritten us, but he sadly left us.
So I'm eagerly awaiting the recap here, because I can't quite remember if that gets it over the line.
Genuinely is like Amanda Holden. It's like, is it French? Is it Dutch? I don't know. Okay. The final score then, the score for Inferno there as a total is 27 points, the 2 10s and a 7. So 4th place for the season is Doctor Who and the Silurians on 21.5. which I mean, in other seasons would have been quite high.
I mean, it would have been a winning score in this season.
Third place, Ambassadors of Death, 23.5. Second place, Spearhead from Space, 24.5, which means Inferno is our winner. Well, not mine. On 27 points.
Yay!
A very worthy winner as well. I'm really pleased about that. Worthy winner of the season.
I think there was a subliminal influence by having someone dressed up as a character from it throughout. I'm worried whether that was like advertising and product placement, maybe.
Maybe I should have worn my Eye of Axos, and the Claws of Axos in season 8 might have scored a little bit higher.
You probably couldn't prize the poster off your bedroom wall after all the viewing. Right. Well, thank you very much, gentlemen. I hope you all enjoyed that, and I'd like to know, obviously, what you thought of the season and any of the topics we brought up. Put your scores, your thoughts, nice things beneath. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much. Pleasure to have been here again to review another season of Doctor Who.
That's only about 20 to go now. So we'll see you soon then. Bye-bye.